Old friend is back with the San Diego Padres. The Padres announced today that they are bringing back Luis Patino, claiming him off of waivers from the Chicago White Sox. Yes, he was on the White Sox. He was not on the Tampa Bay Rays. He was with the White Sox at the end of the 2023 season. And immediately when I see this, I'm like, well, okay, of course. When the White Sox DFA Luis Patino, which I believe they did like pretty recently, the Padres, they loved Luis Patino. It's not like they wanted to trade Luis Patino to the Rays for Blake Snell, but that was just the price of doing business. So, yeah, I'm not surprised that the Padres end up picking up Patino here. When you look back on the deal, December 29th, 2020, Padres, they trade Blake Hunt, a catcher. What has he done since then? Cole Wilcox, what has he done since then? Right-handed pitcher. Francisco Mejia, catcher. What has he done since then? He was playing with the Rays for years, but did he turn into one of the best catchers in the league? Because he was super hyped up when he was with Cleveland. Remember the Brad Hand trade? And then when he came over to the Padres. But what has he done? And then Luis Patino, it's not like he ended up being Tyler Glasnow or anything like that in the Tampa Bay Rays rotation. And the Padres got back Blake Snell, who won the Cy Young this past year, helped them reach the playoffs in 2022. I mean, they won the deal, and they got back the star pitcher that they traded in this deal. They get him back here. It's damaged goods, but maybe he won't be damaged by the end of spring training or by the end of the year if the Padres give him a shot. And if you just take the whole Luis Patino thing out of it, like him being a former Padre, this is just another potential arm. Like, there's no downside in claiming Luis Patino off of waivers. There's zero downside. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. He's not one of your top prospects anymore where you're relying on him to be this star in your rotation. He's not in the position of Robbie Snelling. He's just claimed off of waivers. He's talented. So how can the Padres get that talent out of Luis Patino? What can they do that the Rays, the White Sox weren't able to do? Is part of it injuries? I'm trying to look through some injury history here for Patino. Right middle finger laceration in 2021, left oblique strain in 2022, 2023. I'm not seeing any injuries in 2023. He was traded August 1st to the White Sox for cash. So the big guy that the Rays got back in the Snell deal, they ended up just trading him to the White Sox years later for cash. Now, you could say, well, Ben, the Rays didn't think that the Rays couldn't do anything with Luis Patino. So why should we think the Padres are going to be able to? Even if they don't, even if they don't get anything out of Luis Patino, it's not a big deal. It's not, because it was the Rays where he had the pressure and the Rays had the pressure to make him a great starter. The Padres, sure, there's a little bit of pressure because they need arms, but they don't need, if it doesn't work out, it's not going to be the end of the world, right? Where if Patino would have stayed with the Padres and they didn't acquire Blake Snell, Patino would have been relied upon, or at least I think fans would have definitely been relying upon Luis Patino. Like, this guy needs to end up being a star, but he didn't. So I'm very interested in seeing what he can do, what Ruben Niebla can do, Ben Fritz, the Padres. What can they do with Luis Patino? Have they identified something? Why he hasn't been able to be as successful as the Padres probably were thinking he was going to be? Because when you trade Patino to the Rays for Blake Snell, you want production out of Blake Snell, but you're expecting Patino to turn out to be something with the Rays, and he ended up not really doing anything with the Tampa Bay Rays. Let's look at the stats. 2020, I don't even really remember him pitching for the Padres at the big league level, but 5.19 ERA, 11 games out of the bullpen because he only started one game there. Then 2021, with the Rays, a 4.31 ERA, 15 starts, 19 appearances, 77 and a third innings, and he posted a 4.31 ERA, 1.27 WHIP. 2022 is where it really went off the railings. He only had 6 appearances, 6 starts at the big league level in 22 for the Rays, 20 innings, a 1.95 WHIP, Opponents were hitting 313 off of him. So opponents felt pretty comfortable in the box against Luis Patino. And maybe I'm not remembering correctly, but that's not who I think a lot of fans were thinking Luis Patino was, where at one point early in his big league career like this, opponents were not going to be scared of Luis Patino at all. Like we thought Patino was going to be a pretty good pitcher. I think at least I thought plenty of Padres fans thought that. And then 2023 here this past season, a 4.57 ERA in just 9 games, one start, 21 and 2/3 innings, a 1.62 WHIP, 14 walks in 9 games, had 29 walks in 19 games in 2021. So, I mean, it's depth. It's depth for the Padres. Should we add him to the 5th starter competition? I'm not so sure if we should do that right now because although we're familiar with the name, I think he's got to prove it, at least, give him some spring training starts and let's see how he can perform before we say, yeah, go battle for the 5th starter spot. With Pedro Avila and Matt Waldron, we've seen it with the Padres, them working with Ruben Diablo. We've seen some positive things. And this is just me looking at the numbers. I'm not seeing a whole lot of great from Luis Patino recently here with the Rays, with the White Sox. So I would not put him in that. I'd put him in the El Paso camp right now of depth arms. And so, this is something that it can't hurt. It's not going to hurt the Padres to bring Luis Patino in and work with them, see what they can do. And if it doesn't work, put him in AAA. I think that's what they'll be able to do. I think they can put him in AAA. So Patino, I'm looking here, he has 3+ seasons of work, short 2020 season, 21, 22, 23, a total of 45 appearances across 4 seasons. Some relievers get more than 45 appearances in one big league season. So I don't know how much time is left on this Luis Patino contract, but with the Padres making this waiver claim, what this means, the other 29 teams had an opportunity to submit the other 28 teams, I should say, had an opportunity to submit a claim for Patino. Since the Padres claimed him, they assume responsibility for the remaining money owed to Luis Patino, and he's now placed on the 40-man roster. So I believe that he could go, they could just put him in AAA if he doesn't go make the big league team out of spring training. But leave your thoughts in the comments. Luis Patino back to the Padres. Padres already won the Snell trade, and they've definitely won it now that they get Patino back.